Hi there, beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in today. So with the borders opening in Australia, I thought I'll take this opportunity to talk about the things that have changed, of course, after going through a pandemic. A country can never be the same again. So we're going to be talking about things that you should expect as a migrant hoping to migrate in Australia in 2022, or if you're coming here to visit, generally for anybody who has not been in Australia for the last 2 years. So the first thing that you need to be aware of is that there's a huge skills shortage. So loads and loads of job vacancies. So as you all know, Australia is a very rich country. However, most of its population is aging. So we've been dependent for a really long time on international students and working holiday makers to actually boost our labor force. So with international students not being able to come and working holiday makers, there's been a significant shortage in the labor force. So if you're out there and you're hoping to work, to make a buck, make sure to start applying for jobs right now. That way, when you just come into the country, you can go and see your employer, maybe for an interview, and then you can start working immediately, especially if you have the skills. So a lot of times, international students have held back their qualifications, thinking that they're not good enough because their qualifications were from other countries. Please do not hold back. If you have worked in IT, for example, back in your home country, put that in your resume, demonstrate what you have done, and do not be afraid to go for your dream careers. So a lot of times students have always ended up going in other industries, for example, in the hospitality or in the healthcare industry, even if that does not really reflect their passion or their work experience. But with the shortage that is there, please write a good resume, apply for jobs, and when you come back into the country, you will be able to work. Lots and lots of vacancies that have not been able to be filled. And of course, we require the skilled migrants so that we can be able to boost our economy in Australia. The second thing that you need to be aware of is the rental market. The rental market has gone in an all-time craze. The rent has become so expensive, as well as there's a huge shortage in rental houses. So if you're planning to come into the country, I would highly recommend that you plan ahead, plan your accommodation. If you're gonna stay in a hotel, you might be forced to stay in the hotel for a longer period than usual as you sort out your accommodation. So with a lot of, as you know, the international students have not been coming for a while, so a lot of property owners have sold their property, hence there's been a gap in the rental market. So actually most of my friends who live in rental houses have had their leases reviewed, and they've had an increase in rent of about $50 to $100 per week, which is a lot. So be prepared, come ready with your money, because the rent is expensive and there's a huge shortage. The third thing that you need to be aware of is the working culture has changed. So a lot of employers are asking their employees to work from home, which of course is nothing that we can complain about. So with the occasional visits into the office, maybe once or twice per week, but most of the days you'll be required to work from home, because we're trying to keep this pandemic at bay. We're trying to avoid new infections. So it's a good thing that we get to work from home. Of course, that helps you save you in your commute, as well as save on food, because you're able to cook and you don't have to eat out every day as you go to work, which is really good. I honestly foresee this working from home culture is here to stay. I don't see it ending anytime soon, so that's a very good thing. The other thing that you need to be aware of is that in Australia at the moment, if you're going for any events, if you're going to eat out, if you're going to a bar, you will be required to show your COVID vaccine certificate. So I know you'll be required to show that at the airport, but as well as keep it on hand whenever you go out, and make sure you also have your identity card, because they need to compare that certificate with the name on your identity card. So you might be required to carry a passport, or when you come into the country, you can get a proof of age ID card. That way you don't have to walk with your passport all the time. The other thing is that Australians have a very funny culture of panic buying. The first thing COVID was announced, and a lot of people went to their shops and swiped off a lot of things. They went crazy buying loads and loads of toilet papers, food, especially flour, you know, spaghetti, rice, all these kind of foods. You will find the aisles are empty every time there's a lockdown, any time there's a breakout of COVID that is announced. So I thought that would go, of course, because the first time COVID was announced, we all were unsure of the situation. We didn't know how long this thing is gonna last. We didn't know how severe it's gonna be, and that was expected. But then 2 years down the line, Australians are still doing the same. So please make sure to stock up on a toilet paper. Of course, I'm not saying that you need to go crazy, because they will always restock the aisles in the supermarket. So just in case you don't run short during the pandemic, make sure you have a few rolls in the house. Make sure you stock up on your food, because you're going to find the aisles are empty, especially with the goods that take time to perish. For example, rice, flour, all these foods, canned foods. Make sure to stock a little bit, just in case you need something and you go to the supermarket during a lockdown or during a breakout and you don't find any of the goods. The other thing that you need to be aware of is, as an international student, talking to my dear students, because personally when I came to this country, I came in as an international student, and you need to be ready to pay your school fees. So back in 2015, when I arrived in the country, as a student, you would come in and you'll be able to work and be able to subsidize your school fees, of course, with help from your family, or even some students will be able to fully pay for their school fees, because during the holidays, you'll be able to work for 3 months non-stop without any limitation on your working hours, and you'll be able to make a lot of money to be able to pay your school fees. However, please be prepared, because every time there's a breakout, most of the states will go into a lockdown, and these lockdowns can go for 2 weeks to 3 weeks, even a month, whereby, of course, when there's a lockdown, if you're working in hospitality, this is lost to income for a month, for even weeks. And how are you going to pay your school fees as well as your living expenses when there's been a lockdown? So please make sure to prepare. Don't count on working to be able to, of course, pay your school fees. Just make sure you have a backup plan. Organize with your family, organize your finances. That way, if it works out for you and you're able to work and pay, then you can save the money that you had put aside. However, be prepared. You don't want to be in a situation whereby you don't have rent and you don't have a way to live just because you thought you would work to actually cater for your needs. The situation is quite different, and we really don't know. We cannot foresee this coming to an end soon. The other thing that you, of course, which is a bit of a good news to those people who work in the health industry, is that there's a significant growth in the health sector. So if you're a nurse, if you're a doctor, if you work as a mental health practitioner, there are loads and loads of jobs. There's loads and loads of opportunity. There's a huge gap to be filled. So, for example, I have friends who work as nurses, and for example, one of my friends working as a nurse at Fiona Stanley Hospital, which is a hospital in Western Australia, they were told that if they brought in a nurse, a qualified nurse into the facility, they'll be given incentive paid in cash just for bringing a new staff member. It could be $500 to $1,000 just for bringing a new staff member. That's how hard it is, because as we said, Australia has a huge aging population. A lot of them need to be taken care of. They need help, of course, with their daily activities, and there's a huge shortage because there's not been any migrants coming into the country for the last 2 years. So also for those who are not health practitioners, there are a lot of facilities, a lot of hospitals who are willing to take people who have no experience at all, training them, and of course then paying them to actually work in the different facilities. So there's exciting time for the health practitioner or anyone who's interested in working in this particular industry. So with that said, those are the key points that I had today. So if you're in Australia and I might have missed out on anything, please leave a comment. Let's help each other. Let the people coming to Australia know what has changed. Leave a comment below, and if you found this information useful, please don't forget to like, to share, and to subscribe to my channel. So as always, it's a pleasure, and thank you so much for spending this time with me today. So thank you and bye.